So thank you. So I think from the past speakers, for this event, you've been hearing about why it's important to go to the cloud and also the hybrid cloud and the future of cloud, right? Today, what I wanted to do is since you've been hearing about all of this technology, mine is a bit more on the process. What I wanted to talk about is you've heard about why cloud is important, why you should move to the cloud. So my angle here tonight today is actually to speak about how you can do that and what to how you can be guided towards that. So let me just minimize this. How you can be guided towards moving to the cloud. And for Microsoft, there's this what we call the cloud adoption framework for Azure, right? And today I'm going to give an overview. This is a very lengthy topic. It can take more than I can run a workshop on this one, but today I'm just going to do a very quick overview, right? My agenda would be why is cloud adoption important? You've probably heard that from the past speakers, why it is, but let me just kind of quickly run through that. I'm going to give you an overview of the cloud adoption framework for Azure. What are the common motivations and scenarios why people move to the cloud? And how do they now apply the cloud adoption framework to help them towards on these scenarios? And finally, what are the tools, templates, and assessments that you can avail of or make use of to help you towards this migration? Okay, I hope that's a interesting topic. So again, let me brush through on this one. Why is cloud adoption important? Well, simply put, it's what fuels digital transformation. Diba? A lot of us know that for us to innovate, for us to be agile, for us to grow, and for us to be very relevant in today's world, everything, we really need to work with the cloud. It doesn't have to be all cloud, fully cloud. You can always take advantage of a hybrid scenario where you have an on-premise uh, environment. You go connect to a public cloud, and then thus you have a hybrid cloud operation. So then you leverage the strengths of an on-premise environment and the features and the innovation that you can tap from the public cloud like Azure. Uh, Based on a report, this was kind of old. This is a 2018 report, but I think it's still very, very relevant nowadays. 91%. So let me just fire off some numbers here. 91% of business leaders see digital transformation as a way of sparking innovation and finding efficiencies. Okay. 85% say they must offer digital services or become irrelevant. Okay, we see that, nowadays, di ba, meron tayong what we call the disruptors, right? The small scale companies who are just very innovative, they come up with new services, di ba? Or just disrupt the status quo, right? Uh, Finally, 68% say digital transformation is for increasing profit. And finally, 64% say they have less than 4 years to complete a digital transformation or they may go out of business. So that goes back into what I mentioned about disruptors, the digital disruptors. But if you think about it, this was in 2018, but now this is much more, there is much more a hectic pace towards digital transformation, di ba? 2018, we didn't have this pandemic, right? And I've always been mentioning in my past talks, for Microsoft, in the 2 months since we've gone through the pandemic, Microsoft customers went through like a couple of years worth of digital transformation in just those 2 months because everybody had to move to the cloud. Diba? There was no choice. Nobody could go to the offices. Nobody could work on site. Nobody could work in their own environment. They had to work from home and they had to access their servers somewhere. They can't go to the office to do that. So a lot of people, a lot of our customers went to us and say, Microsoft, we need your help to transform. Help us move to the cloud so that we can work from anywhere, anytime, and everywhere, right? So very true, a very true statements over here. So suffice to say, it's really very important. Okay, now that hopefully I've convinced you why it's important, we all know it's difficult, right? Uh, Especially for the smaller businesses or the medium-sized businesses, they're just not ready to move to the cloud. contrast that to the enterprise customers or the enterprise users. Now they have their own full-blown IT department. They have their own, infrastructure team. They have their own system administrators. They have their own developers. They're just ready for that. I mean, like, there's still a shift, but it's not as big a shift as for the medium-sized companies who were not ready for this, who were just outsourcing everything, or maybe they have a skeletal, small team of IT professionals supporting them. All of a sudden, it's all being driven by IT. The business is now being driven by IT. Hindi sila ready for that one. And so moving now to the cloud is giving them a hard time. It can have a hard time, and it's difficult, diba? All of a sudden they have to change their way of thinking. How do we now change? How do we now think as we move to the cloud? Uh, and the leaders, diba? The people in the organization, they need to take risk. Because okay, now I have to invest. Now I have to risk moving my team from on-site work to working from your homes. How do I now make sure that that connectivity to my data is secure, that all of my information is not shared haphazardly, right? I'm not easily hacked and so on, diba? So a lot of risk there, and that needs to be considered. And of course, the culture shift, diba? I remember a friend of mine, kasi kami Microsoft, we're really used to working at home from home or working remotely, diba? So when this whole quarantine thing happened, right? We were not really very much affected at first, because we were used to working anywhere, working from home or working anywhere. Even our IT infrastructure was ready. But that's not the same for all organizations, diba? I remember a friend of mine um, working in let's say, a very Filipino organization. It's a big organization, malaki, but very Filipino. They were not used to working from home. In fact, she told me that when she started working from home, her boss would always check on her to make sure that she's doing work. Diba? Parang, oh, are you doing work? What are you doing? What are you doing? And at the end of the day, please give me an update, that kind of thing. So it requires a culture shift, diba? From timing in to clocking in, diba? And clocking in to your workstation. All of a sudden, your superiors need to trust you to deliver to deliver, diba? To deliver on your targets. It's very different, diba? And now people are like doing, are hardly doing any face-to-face meetings, right? So and there's a lot of things that need to be considered for both from the infrastructure all the way to culture. Okay, but then if you think about it, there are benefits that and there are measurable ROIs or return on investments that the cloud can bring to you, or digital transformation can bring to you, right? Uh, One thing, everybody, you see this right now. You're working from home. The company does not have to invest in on-premise infrastructure costs. They don't need to spend on rent. They don't need to spend on electricity. They don't need to spend on security, etc., etc. There's huge savings there for a company, right? Same thing with on-premise FTE costs, di ba? And now because you're going to the cloud, you're going digital, right? Your go-to market is also different. You can now hit business to consumer quickly. You think about it, di ba? You think about it. If you had your own fast food restaurant or delivery restaurant before the pandemic, what are your chances of being discovered? Now people will go to you and buy food from you, di ba? Hardly zero, almost zero, very minimal. You're expecting people to pass by where your restaurant is or your stall is, right? But now, what's happening? People go to Grab. Okay, where can I order food? All of a sudden, you're on equal playing field with the big players. You're in the same menu where you see Max, Jollibee, ano ba, McDonald's, and then you have your restaurant there as well. Arnie's, Turo Turo, and Salu Salu kind of thing, right? For example. So it's now a level playing field. That's what the digital transformation and what the cloud can bring. Okay. And then you're now expanding your reach. Kaya you now getting more income from new sales. Diba? You're now increasing your revenue channels. Okay. Okay. So now that I've mentioned, why it's relevant, how, and you say, okay, now I want to do this, but Arnie, how do I do it? I really don't know. How do I now move to the cloud? How do I now adopt to the cloud? So that's where the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure comes in. Okay. So why was the Cloud Adoption Framework created? Sorry. The goal of the CAF, or Cloud Adoption Framework, is to provide unified one Microsoft customer guidance for Azure adoption, aligned to their motivations and expected outcomes. So basically, uh, it's a guiding framework. Where do I start? Ito. Why don't you look at this? It's very prescriptive. It's step by step, but you also have the flexibility to start wherever you want. You don't need to, while it can be run through sequentially, you don't need to. If you and we'll talk about that in a little while, right? It spans the entire cloud adoption lifecycle, right? And there are multiple methodologies and processes. So basically, it aligns, and these are the highlighted words here: the business, people, and technical strategy to business goals with actionable, efficient, and comprehensive guidance. So those are your keywords here. Diba? If you don't know how to do it, this is where you can get prescriptive guidance on how to move forward. And this was basically built um, from experience, from best practices experienced by our own services delivery team, by our partner services, our partner delivery teams, from our what's this Azure migration services, and even our fast track. So it's a culmination and a collection of all of these best practices across Microsoft, partner, and third parties brought together to bring you a comprehensive list that's proven because it's been used before. It's not something that theoretically people brought to bear or came up with. It's from actual past experiences. Okay, it's an iterative process, right? So as your business grows, it can be a cycle, right? Like I said kanina, you can start anywhere in the framework, right? You can also loop through the framework as you grow. Okay. So how does the framework look like? So it's basically spanning uh, 6 key focus areas, right? You can start out with, first of all, defining a strategy, diba? Define the business justification, expected outcome. So you can start out from this. So if you're starting from zero, okay, ano ba? How do I even consider moving to the cloud? There is a module on defining the strategy, and it even goes down to why are you even considering moving to the cloud, right? How will you justify moving to the cloud, right? What are your expectations, right? Uh, how do you expect the cloud to work for you, right? And then once you get that strategy, there is a planning module. The planning module now tells you, okay, we go to this module based on your strategy. These are now your next steps, right? This is your actionable. This is your actionable plan to achieve those business goals that you came up with when you defined your strategy. Okay. After you build the plan, you now ready everything else. So as you will know, moving to the cloud is not just moving or migrating your infrastructure to the cloud. It also entails skilling people, right? You have to make your people ready. You need to upskill your people uh, because they're now making use of this new technology, right? This new cloud service. So your people need to be upskilled. You need to change your processes because all of a sudden there's no physical servers to back up, for example, right? uh, you also have to prepare your environment for the change, diba? And then finally, once you've done that, you now start to adopt the cloud. And it can be one of two things, or actually both. You can either be migrating, meaning lift and shift. So whatever you have on premise or in another cloud, you move into Microsoft Azure. That's a simple migration. Or you innovate. And that's really where you then leverage the true power of the cloud. When you innovate, you don't just move infrastructure into Azure, you make use of the platform services of Azure that allows you to build new applications, to build new solutions, to give you a differentiator against competition, right? That is the strength of moving into the cloud. Actually, more than just hosting it in the cloud, you now make use of whatever tools and applications and services are there to make you more innovative. Now, across all of that, of course, at the bottom you will see there's govern and manage, because obviously throughout the entire life cycle, uh, you have to take into consideration your governance. Okay, how do you now comply with industry standards? How do you now control your infrastructure or your sprawl? And how do you maintain security? Diba? Yeah, you need this guidance. There's a guiding principles as part of your governance. And obviously, then how do you now manage and operate this deployment? Diba? How do you make sure it's always up and running? How do you minimize downtime? Uh, how do you uh, how do you now become agile, and how do you respond to the requirements of the business? Like that. Okay. Throughout these slides, you will notice I have links at the bottom left, like in this case, aka MS Adapt Overview. These are clickable links later on. I think you will be getting a copy of this. These are your references where you can get more information about all of this. Okay. So what are the common motivations and scenarios of moving to the cloud? Okay. And why is this relevant? This is relevant because the beautiful thing about this, the cloud adoption framework, is for each of these scenarios or these motivations, there is a corresponding booklet or module in the cloud adoption framework that will guide you how to get this how to address this motivations that you have, diba? So beautiful, diba? For example, let me go through this very quickly. There could be a critical business event. Okay, typical example would be, I want to move out of my data center because my lease is expiring, right? For example, or I don't have enough space and I keep on adding more servers, networking and storage. I just can't, my current data center is just not enough. So now I'm considering either getting a bigger data center or just moving everything to the cloud, or hybrid, diba? You expand in the cloud. Another one could be mergers, acquisitions, or divestiture, diba? When two companies combine, obviously there is an explosion on the requirement for more IT resources. Same thing with, when you're divesting a group, you then now have to let go of capacity, right, and resources. Okay, reduction in capital expenses. One of the key things I've probably heard from throughout the day is when you go to the cloud, it's all OPEX, operating expense, diba? You're now reducing your capital expenditure. And hence, that's the beauty of the cloud. That's the value that you get. And support for mission critical technologies. So one of the things I'm not sure if you're aware of, if you're still using Windows Server 2008 or SQL Server 2008, those are end of support. You don't get security patches for those. However, if you move those workloads that are on-premise into Azure, you can move that Windows Server 2008 or SQL Server 2008 server into Azure, and you will get extended warranty or security patches for 3 years, diba? So that's a quick fix scenario for this kind of environment. Or okay, maybe there's a compliance and data sovereignty requirement. So if you're looking at complying, say if you want to keep credit card information, right? You want to put medical health records, and you want to comply to industry standards like HIPAA or PCI DSS, ISO 2000, etc. It's easy to get at least your infrastructure certified, because if you move your infra into Azure, Azure already has this compliance, right? So all you now have to worry about is your processes, diba? Or the services which are your own. At least your infra is already compliant, diba? and of course reduce disruptions and improve IT speed. But I mean, like that's very easily seen now, diba? What is a major disruption is this whole working from home thing, right? Okay. How about migration motivations? Okay. Cost savings, reduction in vendor technical complexity, uh, agility. Okay. Prepare for new technical capabilities. Okay. Basically, it's very similar to business events, right? Which are asking you to do this migration, right? I want to focus a bit more on innovation motivations because this one is more forward thinking. This is more than just, maintaining infrastructure, but adding value to the business, diba? You want to prepare new technical capabilities. All of a sudden, my stores are no people are going to my stores. I'm a retail company, no people are going to my stores. I want to now harvest the strength and power of the cloud to enable myself to give new experiences to my customers so that they can shop online, diba? So I want to be able to scale to meet market demands. I don't want to be limited by a physical data center, by a physical resources, right? I want to be able to scale anytime I need it. I can grow, but by the same token, I can also reduce the requirement when I don't need it, right? And I want to transform the products and services. Of course, disrupt the market with new products or services. All of that is available in the cloud. Yeah? Okay. So here's a typical uh, framework for migrating existing workloads. It all starts out with, you know, you will see it's not just technical. It spans all the way back to the business, to the stakeholders. Diba? You take a look at aligning the stakeholders, maybe even consider if you're gonna work with a partner. Diba? If you want to work with a partner as you go through your transformation, or do you want to do it yourself? Diba? These are all part of the toolkit, all part of the modules in the cloud adoption framework. You just go through it. At the end of it, you get a recommendation and some guidance. Diba? Uh, you can then do the plan, gathering the data, create a business case. There's even templates on how to make a business case. There's guidelines and even a module and template on how to build a TCO study, right? You create a migration plan, and so on and so forth, right? All the way to migrating your first 10 workloads, okay? And then after that, you work on your governance and management, all here in the toolkit, right, in the framework. What about building new product and service? I'm not going to go through this one by one because you can see this yourself, right? Maybe I just want to highlight a couple of things. Being, you will see that as we go through the different scenarios, the governance and management are actually like moving and shifting. Let me show that. In this case, when you are migrating existing workloads, the governance and management actually now moves towards the end. They're step 9 and 10, right? And then they affect the migration plan, of course. But uh, the reason for that is because you're just moving, diba? And you just need to update your governance and management principles. But when you're building new products and services, in this case, right from the very beginning, you already have to think, okay, what are my guiding principles on governance and management? Diba? Because now I'm building native cloud applications or a native cloud service, native cloud solution, right? And here, when you adopt, it's really more on innovating, not just migrating, right? And finally, how do you unblock environment design and configuration? So it's all here. No? These are all toolkits. These are all modules that you can find in the cloud adoption framework. Okay. So as you go to the get started guides, okay, you will see that there are different scenarios over here. Okay, and you can click on each one to help you on your journey. You will now get your own journey to cloud adoption. Okay. Okay. Let me do. Uh, the tools are here, right? For each vertical or each column module, you can click on this one. There's a cloud journey tracker, business outcome template, etc. So you can see there's templates here. There's even one called an Azure DevOps demo generator. So this is beautiful because when you build your strategy, okay, your cloud adoption plan template, right? You can then export it into Azure DevOps. It becomes a user story. So you can now track your journey. Diba? So you automate a lot of these things. It's easier to track and easier to monitor where you are. Right? Some of the things and the toolkits that you can see to get ready are setup guides, some readiness checklists, okay, naming and tagging, tracking templates, and even landing zone blueprints. If you're not familiar with landing zones, very quickly, let me just mention, it is a way to build the foundation of your cloud environment, diba? Because you want to make sure that rather than haphazardly just plugging in virtual machines and storage and database, all of that, you now have a framework where you have a good foundation where you can then plug in new workloads as you grow. As you grow into the future, you don't need to, let's say, because security. You don't need to provide security every time you add a new workload because then you're leveraging a foundation that has built-in security already. That's a very simple way of putting landing zones, right? Very powerful blueprints that you can use to automate building a blueprint in Azure. Excuse me. There is, in the adoption phase, there is an assessment tool. There's even a migration guide and innovation guide. If you're looking at governance, benchmarks are there. Uh, Cost management process, diba? Deployment, acceleration, identity, right? How do you govern identity to make sure that only authorized users are able to access the right resources? And security baseline. So you can have a security check. You see where you are right now, and then from there see where the gaps are. Of course, management to see how you can fill up a checklist, and it will tell you how well architected your architecture is. Right? There's even best practices and some workbooks. So at this point, let me quickly pause and go to the Cloud Adoption Framework site. So this is the website for this is the site. The link is in the deck, so don't worry about it. Let me just make this a bit smaller. So as you see here, this is where all the guidance is. This is where get started, strategy, your plan, your getting ready, migration, your innovation, your governance, your management, and plus the addition of your organizational alignment or organize. At the bottom is where you can do the assessments. Cloud Journey Tracker, you can use it to identify where are you now in the cloud journey. But then you can find out which part of the framework I can use already and start using, right? The assessments are here, the governance, and like I mentioned, the well-architected review. So let me see, let me just like run through very quickly on this one. Because you want to accelerate your migration, right? So everything is here. It tells you what to do step by step. So step one, align your stakeholders, and you have links here to further resources, right? Diba? If you are the one tasked to, hey, Arnie, you need to now plan for our digital transformation, our migration into the cloud. How do you now do it? This is here. It's all here. Align partner support if required. You gather your data, right? Inventory your existing systems, and there are tools for that as well, right? Your estate, digital estate toolkit, inventory rather. Okay? Make a business case. How do you make a business case? Well, you can build a cloud migration business case here, or you can use this template to build your strategy and plan, right? For example, let me just open this. Diba? Okay, I should have downloaded this earlier, sorry. But yeah, see, it's here. You just plug in the blanks, diba? And I dare you, you present this to your management, they will be very, very, surprised, and maybe will, be happy with this report, diba? So it's all here. It's a template. People always ask me, how, please Arnie, give me guidance on how to migrate. It's all here. It's all in your. It's all publicly usable information. Okay, and accessible by you. Okay. So that's that's basically what you can do with the cloud adoption framework. Okay, so back to my presentation. Okay, so accelerate your digital transformation journey. You can find a partner. Of course, you can talk to VSTCS over here running this event. You want to see where you are right now? Why don't you take your own self-assessment over here? Use this link. You can read some documentation on how to adopt. If you want to make use of Microsoft Consulting Services, there's a link here, right? If you want to learn more about the Cloud Adoption Framework, you just go to this link. Okay. So basically, with that, that ends my presentation.